Hi, my name is Kai Armstrong. I'm the Senior Product Manager for the Code Review Group here at GitLab. And today we're here to talk about the upcoming GitLab 14.0 release and what the Code Review Group will be working on. So let me share my screen and we'll jump right into some issues. So in 13.12, you might have remembered that we talked about large MRs and how large MRs were going to be an area of performance improvement that we were looking at over Q2. Um, we'll talk about a couple issues maybe that we're going to work on. But what I do want to touch on is that we've defined where we're benchmarking this for the purposes of these tests. And we think this is a really important data point so that we're all talking about the same thing when we say a large MR. And this data was based on taking the 200 most active projects as measured by the number of MRs in the last 90 days over GitLab.com. And so we looked at all of those MRs and sort of dialed out what the high end of the percentiles were in terms of a merge request and how big is big when we're talking about this. And so at the upper end in the 99th percentile, what you can see is that the file count is 128 files. And so it's a pretty significant jump from even the 95th percentile to get to the 99th percentile. And so we're looking at MRs that are, in this 100 to 128 file range is where we're talking about. The line count is another important one here. And so you'll see at the 95th percentile, we're talking about 1,300, almost 1,400 lines. When we get up to 99th percentile, we're nearly 12,000 lines. So about 10 times as large in terms by the number of lines being changed in a merge request. And so we're looking, again, in this 10,000 to 12,000 line change range is where we want to talk about, the performance improvements that we're looking and the impact we're trying to have on a merge request. And then the last one is number of commits. Number of commits is a little more challenging to deal with in testing, but the 95th percentile is 16 and the 99th percentile is 89. So it's another huge jump between both of these. Our test MRs will have not quite all the way up to the 99th percentile that we're working with, but they're pretty close up to here. And so we are testing against a real merge request from the GitLab project at an older point in time. And so we've got some, sort of benchmarks here for a real project with real activity and real sort of, all the other pieces that come along with that. So that's what we're talking about here for testing. I'll link this issue below so you can see sort of all the conversations that took place and how we arrived at this and take a look at our sample MR. But that's what we're talking about when we're talking about large MRs. We know there are teams that have MRs well outside of these numbers or that this isn't large for them and they don't, they work in smaller MRs. We're targeting these because even the improvements that we make, because we're trying to stay away from user experience tricks or hiding or different workflows, would benefit smaller MRs as well. They'll even benefit the larger ones, but this is where we're focused in terms of our performance improvements. The other one that I want to talk about is a reminder that we're removing support for WIP prefixes in merge requests to signal that the merge request is not ready to be merged. We switched over to the term draft that's been in the application for quite a while now. And so draft will be the only supported term moving forward for merge requests. The last two things I want to talk about is the VSCode extension. So over several milestones, we've been working on creating a complete code review experience inside of VSCode, and we are finally here. Fingers crossed, everything goes well. So we're looking at two issues to get this across the line. One of these is tracking changes of the lines in the diff inside of VS Code. This allows us to keep track of what we need to, the positions that we need to be able to have to make comments on the merge request. So this is the final sort of prep issue. And then the big one, the only thing we don't support currently on merge request, which that other issue will enable, is to create a new comment on the diff. You can already respond to comments if you open a merge request in VS Code. If there's an existing comment, you can respond to those comments. You can, comment in the threads. This will allow you to create a brand new thread on a piece of code from VS Code, and then that output will be replicated up into the GitLab merge request interface. So I'm really, really excited that we're finally going to get this across the line and delivered here. So keep an eye out for this. This will ship during the 14.0 milestone. It'll ship in a VS Code release. We release VS Code extensions usually about 2 to 3 times a month. So keep an eye out for this to hit, and we'll make sure that this is a big one that we're promoting and we're excited about. So that's what we've got upcoming for 14.0 for the code review group. If you have any questions, I'll put links down below. Feel free to reach out in issues or comment or tag me, and we'll take a look. Thanks.